Hello, friends. This is a bit of a unique episode because it's actually a masterclass I taught for Showit designers inside of Showit's new designer hub. So I did this video training version of this class last week, and then I asked Showit's team, hey, that was a really great class. Do you mind if I share this with my podcast community too? And they said, heck yes. So here you go. Here we are with me getting to air this awesome training on the podcast. So this is a jam-packed episode all about pricing yourself as a designer. And I know Showit is in the title, and yes, I design on Showit myself, but if you design on something else like Wix, Squarespace, WebFlow, Kajabi, WordPress, anything, you can totally apply what I'm teaching here to your business as well. We're talking all about pricing, and that can apply across different website platforms. And if you want to see the slides and video version with my face in the training and see any of the examples I'm talking about in the audio, go join the new Showit Designer Hub. It's Showit's home for all Showit designers to find design resources and community support. And it's available to any designers with an active Showit subscription. Okay, so that's how you get in. I'm linking directly to where you can go join this community in the show notes. And this is different than the Showit Designer Facebook group. Okay, so if you're thinking yeah, I'm in that Facebook group, this is a different thing. That Facebook group is actually going to go away, and this is replacing it. And y'all, it's way better than the Facebook group. It's awesome. And I got to be part of the launch team for it. I'm in the community frequently, reading posts, and this training and some other ones are in there as well. So in this training, I'm talking about things like when and how to raise your prices as a designer, how to choose your prices to begin with, why charging your worth is keeping you broke if you fall into that little mindset there, how to display your prices on your website, pricing psychology type stuff, and so much more. So that's it. Before we get into the training real quick, I just wanted to add, if you're a designer who's new to using Showit and you're wanting to start, maybe you're thinking as you listen to this and other episodes I've done, you want to try Showit, you can actually get a free month of your Showit subscription with my Showit discount link. So entire 30 days, no credit card, no strings attached. And you can just use the code Elizabeth when you create your Showit account and it asks for a referral code. I will also drop a link in the show notes where that code and all the info and some different FAQs about that free month is. That is an affiliate link just for your reference. But yeah, if you're thinking about Showit, definitely use my code Elizabeth to get a free month. Now, here is that training. I'm kind of cutting in an interesting part, and I'll cut out a little early in it as well. But I so hope you enjoy this, and would love to hear from you if you want more episodes about pricing yourself as a designer and around this whole topic, because I have a lot to say about it. So here it is. Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning, because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. Hey guys, I am so thrilled to be here with you today. Thanks for coming and watching this training. So I'm Elizabeth McCravey. I'm a Showit website designer like you, and this training is going to be so jam-packed, straight to the point, with strategies to help you price yourself as a designer, whether you're a new designer and you're figuring out pricing for the first time, or maybe you've been a designer for a while, but you're I don't know if I'm thinking that strategically about how I'm pricing myself. I'm just kind of just going with what I see out there, or what used to work, and you want some bigger strategies, or maybe you're not even booking clients the way you quite would like to, and you're hoping this will help. So this is going to help with all of that. And before we get to the content, I want us to get acquainted really quick. I will keep this part brief because I really do just want to get into all these slides with all the strategies. So a few quick facts about me. Like I said, my name is Elizabeth McCravey. I'm a wife to my high school sweetheart. We live in the Nashville, Tennessee area, and I'm a toddler mom to this precious baby boy. He actually just turned 2, and I am pregnant with baby number 2 on the way. So that is super exciting. That's our pregnancy announcement photo right there. And I'm also the host of the Breakthrough Brand podcast. So if you enjoy podcasts, go listen to it, especially if you like this training, because the content on there is going to be really similar. But there's like over, I want to say like 230 episodes at this point, where I'm teaching a lot of things that'll help you as a designer and growing your business. So go check that out. And then I'm also the creator of the online course, Book.Designer. It's a course and coaching program for brand and website designers that teaches you how to build an in-demand business as a designer without burning out and without trying to do all the things. It's truly like the business course for being a designer. So I'm not teaching you like how to design. It's more of like, hey, here's how to do the finances, the marketing, discovery calls, managing client projects and workflows and things like that. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check that out too. And last thing, I'm a Showit website designer, and I also create and sell templates. So I've been in business about 7.5 years, almost 8 years now. And I started out doing all the things, literally everything from like social media management to doing some billboards and flyers and websites and brands and copywriting, like did all the things. And I ultimately niched down to Showit website design, which I could not be more thrilled with. I still remember when I found Showit and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a game changer. So I now design templates mainly on Showit. And a little bit of my Showit experience. So I'm a Showit design partner, and I've been designing on Showit since I want to say 2017. It might be 2016. I need to try to figure out like when my actual first Showit site was built. And now at this point, over 1,300, it might actually be way higher than that of a number. That's just like the last one I kind of had access to. But websites have been built with my templates or designs on the Showit platform, which is really, really cool. So I've been with Showit for a while. I know a thing or two about Showit, and I also know a thing or two about pricing. And this is something I teach in depth in Book.Designer, pricing yourself. So I'm excited to give you like a little snippet of like diving into that kind of strategy. So once we are done with this training, you are going to leave with strategies for deciding on your pricing, a better understanding of pricing psychology, because we're going to talk through some principles of pricing, and then the like strategy you need to use for raising your prices over time, for also displaying your prices on your website, like so many things. So I got 4 principles and then 4 strategies, and that's how we're going to kind of like divide up the content here. So first though, I want to talk about how pricing is emotional. So I would just say, I want us just to like, as we like go into all this content, like come with this in mind. But pricing is emotional, even if we don't want it to be, and we tell ourselves like, hey, it's just business, like that's the advice we're told is like pricing's business. It's not about your worth. Like it's not that big of a deal. It's just like, that's how the world works with money, So we can tell ourselves it's just business, but it is so emotional. And I would add that it's especially true early on in our business when things are rapidly changing a lot and we're trying to figure things out. And we're really just like trying to get some clients, trying to get some work, trying to get some customers under our belt. And we hear statements like charge what you're worth and add tax, which one of my least favorite pieces of business advice. We'll get into that more. And that can cause us, though, to equate our numbers with our personal value, which simply isn't true. And if you're like me and watching this training, maybe you've been in business longer and you're like, hey, pricing's still emotional for me, I would say, hi, it's still emotional for me too. Whenever I come out with like a new service or product, I can feel that again of like, wanting it to just be like the value to add up, right? It's an emotional thing, and it is what it is. And I think it's okay that it's emotional. But as we approach this, I just want to say like, hey, it is. In addition to that though, pricing is marketing. And this is like one of my favorite things to talk about. But what you charge for your web design, your branding, whatever kind of services you're doing, that is a piece of the marketing for your services. So you can't talk about what's included, what your process is, who it's for, all of that, without at some point talking about the cost. Like even if you think about how, we as designers, we do discovery calls where you might be on Zoom or on the phone with a potential client and you're talking through those things. And at some point, you're going to talk about the price. What is a discovery call? It's a marketing call. It's a call where you are selling someone on working with you. And so it's a piece of your marketing, and it's the cost. When the cost is combined with what's like included, it's just such a big piece. Like it's all works together to be the marketing for your services. And so something being a good deal or being high value, the price is part of that, the marketing for that offer. So when we say like, oh, this is such a good deal, that is because of the price, which is a marketing element. So that's just something to remember too, as you think about your price, as it relates to the entire package. It is a piece of the marketing for the package, which is not how we often talk about it, but I think it's a really helpful perspective because that's the truth of it, right? That's how our clients see it. It's going to sell them or it's not, and they're going to see the value or they're not. So let's get into the principles. So I have 4 principles of pricing that you need to know as a designer as you think about your rates. And then we're going to get into those pricing strategies after we talk about these 4 principles. So the first principle: price is relative. What do I mean by that? Let's talk about what that means. So if I ask you, is $1,000 a lot of money? I don't know. That's a relative question. So it would be a lot of money for like a Starbucks pumpkin spice latte, no matter how amazing you think those are. It's also a lot of money for a wreath for your front porch. That would be like, wow, that's like the most expensive latte ever. That's the most expensive wreath ever. But is it a lot of money for a brand new car or for your dream vacation? No, it's not at all. That's like a steal. So the new car and a dream vacation, that probably has a perceived value in your mind. Like maybe there is a car you're interested in buying, or yeah, like this vacation I would like love to go on. Those have a perceived value, and you kind of have thoughts about what they would cost, just like you had thoughts about what a latte or wreath should cost. And that would be a steal. The $1,000 would be a steal for those things. So it's super relative. And in addition to that, what's too expensive for one person might not be for another person. So if you can convey the value of something, the value of your web design service to that person, and then they also see the value, then it's not too expensive for them. When someone says to you or to anyone else, that's too expensive, what they really mean is that I don't see the value for me. Like I've had friends before maybe say that like something I was interested in buying is too expensive. It's too expensive for them. They don't see the value. Maybe that's not a priority to them, but that doesn't mean it would be too expensive for someone else. There's a market for like literally anything at any price point. And it's helpful to remember too that this is not a bad thing, because you actually don't need every single person out there to see everything you do as valuable. You just need your ideal clients to see what you do as valuable and what you do as not quote unquote too expensive. I remember for me a few Black Fridays ago, I got an email from some random dude who was on my email list and clearly was not like an ideal customer, complaining that my templates were too expensive. And he is offended by this and should not be getting my emails. And it was just such a funny message to me, because I'm like, yeah, like that is interesting. You know, it probably is too expensive for you. You're not the ideal client for this. And that's okay. And so that was just a good reminder for me of like all this being true of like expensive means different thing to different people. And you don't need everyone to see it. So that is the first thing to remember, is that pricing is relative. And because of that, and for a lot of other reasons we could get into another day, but there's no one right price that every Showit website should cost, or every template customization, or every template you could sell. It's all relative to who you're serving and what you're offering within that package. So while it is helpful to ask other designers, like, hey, what are you pricing yours at? And is that working for you? I do think like researching that or looking around at like what other people are doing is helpful. So I'm not going to tell you not to do that, but ultimately like what she's doing over there, what he's doing over there, doesn't actually matter to what you're doing if you're not serving the same people. And even if you are, your style, your package, the way you're doing things is going to be different. So it's all relative. And so there is no one right price, and we need designers at every level to serve every client. There's someone ready to pay for the most expensive and the least expensive when it comes to this in every category. Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravey.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravey.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. Number 2, principal pricing. People have to be willing to pay your price or you will not have clients. Seems obvious, right? What makes someone willing to pay your price? Perceived value. So they pay for value, and if they don't see the value matching the price, they will not want to pay for it. Just like I said last, if they don't see the value, they'll call it too expensive. So people have to be willing to pay your price or you will not have clients. And it is on you to communicate the value of your design services. It's not on your customers or potential clients to just like figure out on their own, like this, it says this amount, but like, is it the value that? The value has to be evident, which is again why I say pricing is marketing and a piece of our marketing. It's also why being a successful designer is so much more than just designing well, which is unfortunate, I know, because as designers, we love like being behind our laptop and just kind of like making things and show it. But it's about how to market as well. That's what it takes to be a successful designer. Both the design skill and the marketing skill and the business skill are what's going to get you there. But you have to communicate the value of your design services to your client. So instead of asking yourself, what can I charge for my design services? I would encourage you to ask, how much is this result, the end result, right, of the completed Showit website worth to my ideal client? And my ideal client is key here, like whoever it is you're serving. And like I said, it's different than who he's serving, who she's serving over there. And something that's really sad to me that I've seen for years is some designers price themselves like poorly in this way. They're pricing themselves wrong for who they're trying to serve or for where their portfolio is at this point in their business, because they're just like, charge what you're worth and add tax. And that's kind of the mentality. And then therefore you're not able to get clients because the prices are too high. So with that, like I said, people have to be, I had this on here twice. People have to be willing to pay you or you'll end up with no clients. So you might, it really is just so sad, but like when you're pricing yourself too high for who you're targeting, you don't get clients. And so if you're feeling that right now, like you can't book, but you're going off of some like random advice of like, all websites should cost this, and it's not working for you, consider lowering your prices right now, which we're going to talk about how to raise our prices a bit later here. But if you're not booking clients, that is a way to help solve this. And you raise your prices over time. And it's really unfortunate because I've seen this happen where designers think, oh, I'm just a horrible designer and no one wants to work with me. But in reality, you're just charging too much. And so for where you are right now, and so, or for who you're trying to target even. So the potential clients don't see the value yet for this price. So ask yourself, how much is this worth to my ideal client, knowing that who you're trying to serve is going to want to pay different amounts for things. And asking yourself that question, what is this result worth at your phase of business for this client? So when we think results, we want to think about what happens to, I want to note that after their new brand and website, whatever it is, and also the value of like that you're providing a skill that they can't do themselves. And then what's the result of the website, the brand, whatever it is over time. Okay, principle 3. Your price is about economics, not personal value. So I've said this so many times now, but it's not about charge what you're worth. It's about charge what people will pay right now at this stage in your business. So just please stop concerning yourself with the charge what you're worth mentality. It's bad advice and it keeps people broke. Because you're often overpricing your services. You don't book any clients and you shut down your business, and you are worthy of no dollar amount. There's literally no dollar amount. And so worth more than the dollar amounts. And so trying to think about it that way is not helpful. And it's not about you. It's about the value add of what you sell right now in this moment. So this is why we raise prices over time. And every few projects, you should raise your prices as your skill and portfolios increase. And like I said, we need designers at every price point for every client. So in addition, when I mention economics, it's worth noting, we all know right now inflation is a very real thing. I found 2 funny inflation memes on Google for us here, and larger companies are changing their prices to go with inflation, to make ends meet, to make like the company work. And I know inflation's going down, but it still is like a thing that's affecting people's spending. It probably makes your life feel more expensive as you're paying your bills from your design business. So you can also think about this and factor this in when you think about your pricing right now, that maybe things are a bit higher to kind of go with inflation like other companies, and they're like expert financial teams are doing it for them. And the last principle of pricing, then we're going to get into all the strategies. The biggest pricing changes will happen in the first few years of business. So this is just really helpful to remember as you're feeling like maybe things are all over the place. So just like a kid, just like my little toddler has the most dramatic development in their first year and first few years of life, your pricing and your business as a whole is going to have the most dramatic shifts in those first years. And I would say for businesses, it all depends on like when you're going full time and if you go full time and things like that. But I would say typically within the first 3 years of business is where you're going to see the most change, especially with pricing. And we think about that with our business and with a child. That doesn't mean the child stops growing or the business stops changing after 3 years. It doesn't mean your prices never increase after 3 years. It just means like the biggest shifts where you're like going up, going down, changing services, doing this, adding that, like changing the package, like all that is happening maybe the most in those first 3 years. And if you're outside of those first 3 years, but maybe you just recently went full time, or you just recently really like up leveled your marketing for yourself, you recently redid your packages, you'll likely still fall into this range, even though you're outside of 3 years. So yeah, if you're in those early stages of business, and you find yourself constantly dabbling in your pricing, very, very normal. Okay, so now let's talk about deciding on specific prices for your services and getting into these strategies. So we're going to focus here on services specifically, thinking about things like designing a custom Showit website, or doing a Showit template customization, or doing branding with a Showit template customization, whatever it is. You can apply plenty of this to website templates as well. I actually sell website templates and I think about this stuff as well for that, but it is different pricing a digital product from pricing a service. So just know I'm mainly talking here from the view of a service, but you can apply it to something like templates too. So first thing, and this is one that like, I'm like, hey, yeah, this does really apply to templates, but apply to services. So don't just pick one exact specific price for your services, do a range. Now, this is my advice. And if you ask another website designer, they may tell you something completely different, and that's okay. But this is what I have found works for me and works for my students. So do a sliding scale. List a range on your website, which I'm going to show you some examples, and decide the exact price based on the specific project, and the exact price will be within that range. So websites are not like other services, like maybe doing a quick family portrait for a photographer or doing a wedding, where it's like cut and dry, and it's kind of like you're just recycling the same thing. It's based on how many hours you're there, and it's like it can only go so long. Each each project has the potential to be so super different, even when you're working within the same niche for like every project. So for example, designing a sales page with 1,000 words that was written by a professional copywriter is going to be very different from a service page where the business owner wrote their own copy and they're actually really struggling to think of anything to say. Like that's a completely different design project. A 10-page website is going to be different from a 20-page website. And again, add that copy element. Like y'all, when a client works with a copywriter, I love it because it's less work for me, but also like your pages are going to be so much longer typically. A person who's transferring 200 blog posts over from Squarespace to Showit, and you are helping facilitate that, that is different from doing a website for a company that this is their first website ever. It's literally different levels of work. So you want to say something like what this example on the screen says. Showit website design investment is 5,000, 8,000, depending on the project scope. Contact me for your custom quote, or book a discovery call for your custom quote, and you can link out to that. As we talk about pricing in this episode, if you're having some aha moments and big takeaways, I've got to tell you, this 40-ish minute training is actually a whole module in Booked Out Designer where there are 9 lessons just on pricing. And those 9 lessons equal up to 2.5 hours of me teaching on the topic of pricing. So when I say I have a lot to say about pricing, I really mean it. I've got about 2.5 hours worth of things to say. We go in depth on things like money mindset, pricing principles, packaging your services, whether or not to share your prices on your website and how to do so if you do share your prices, how to choose the price for each individual package you offer in your design business, how to price your individual projects, discounts, awkward ask, and price objections you're definitely going to get at some point, and how to confidently raise your prices. So yes, all of that is just one of the many modules inside Booked Out Designer. And you can actually listen to the course on the go like you are right now with this podcast, or you can sit down and watch it with the slides and examples and take notes and all that. So the module on pricing is actually just one of 9 modules in the course. We cover so much. It's an extremely extensive course on running a design business. Plus you get a community and group coaching with me as well. And fun fact, right now, actually next week, I should say, is the literal best time of the year to join Booked Out Designer. So next week kicks off Booked Out Week, which is my version of a celebration of starting and growing a successful design business. And during this 5-day period of September 25th through 29th, you'll be able to save $150 off the course and get tons of bonus. And I'll also be offering an extended payment plan to help it make sense for you financially if the current payment options feel like too tight for your budget. So that's another reason it's a great time to buy. This promotion period only happens 1 to 2 times a year. So if you're someone who's been thinking about joining Booked Out Designer for a while, this is truly a great time to join. And it'll be our last Booked Out week of 2023. And between the bonuses, the coaching calls, the course itself, and the community, you really cannot lose with this product if you watch the course and implement the tools you're getting and take these strategies and apply them to your business. There are so many designers out there who are leaving their 9-to-5, going full time, making more money than they ever thought they could in their business, not dealing with burnout, and really just thriving as designers and having great systems, booking dream clients, all that good stuff after taking this course. So you can go to elizabethmccravey.com/BOD-week. I'm putting that link in the show notes too, to get notified when things kick off, get info on all those bonuses I'm talking about and all that good stuff. So again, that's September 25th that it kicks off. So mark your calendar for that date. There will definitely be a fast action early bird bonus that day. If you're feeling like, oh yeah, I'm definitely ready to join, then join on the 25th. And yeah, I just can't wait to welcome new designers into our community. Now, back to the training. So it's so hard to say this is exactly what it should cost always as designers. And there are some industries that are lucky with their services to be able to do that, but I don't think that works well for designers. And this is where range pricing is great. And I personally really like range pricing over the starting at pricing, because this gives you the most clarity for the potential client. So here's an example. So these are 2 ways people might do it. And maybe you're doing one of these ways right now, or you're saying the exact price, which again, I would caution against, because you might end up with a project that's way out of scope of your $7,000 price. And you're like, whoa, this is so much work. So here's kind of 2 ways to do it. So you could say starting at $7,000 and it goes up to who knows, 15,000, 20,000? They don't know with the way you're phrasing that. You could also say it's from 6,000 to 9,000. So these people, these two designers may end up both charging $8,000 for the project, but by giving an in number, you're helping the potential client not go into the conversation so blind. So when they're booking a discovery call with you, they know that the maximum quote you're going to give them is 9,000 and they can probably afford that in their business. The 7,000 plus, someone might think like, I don't even know if I want to book with that. Like they don't even know if they want to book a call with you because that feels so kind of overwhelming. So yeah, that would be my advice. And then when we think about that example too, which I'm saying is the way to go, you want the range to be narrow. So you can see like this is a good range example right here. Typically anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 is going to be an okay range. And I would add with that, it depends on how low it is. So like right here, 6 to 9 is great for those higher numbers, but like I would not do like, I don't know, like 1 to 5,000. Like that's such a huge range. So just kind of think about it like that. You wouldn't want to say, 10,000 to 20,000. We want to be tighter than that, to where really when they arrive with you in the discovery call, then they like really have a clear expectation. You're probably actually going to pretty closely hit on what they're thinking it's probably going to cost. Okay, next principle. Factor your processing fees into your project costs. So I actually recently did an episode on my podcast, again, the Breakthrough Brand Podcast. Go listen to it if you are not a listener. But if you go to 228, you can hear an episode about this. I talk at length all about this in that episode, so I don't really want to go into all of it here. But bank processing fees are just a part of doing business and not something to try to forever avoid. I know it's really common for new business owners, and I was completely there. Again, I talk about this in depth on the episode, but like I was there where like I was making people pay me on Venmo, asking for checks or cash because I was trying to avoid those processing fees. And processing fees are simply the cost of doing business. And at some point, you're going to have to step into like accepting that cost and just letting your clients pay with a credit card through an invoicing system, and kind of factoring that into what you're charging. So companies like Stripe, Square, PayPal, all of those, they are not charging you to use their service. They're making a money through the percentage every time you make money instead of charging you like a monthly service fee. So basically, just don't try to bypass those fees. It's more work for you, and more work for your clients. And so just factor this into the cost of doing business and know that the number you see that like, say it's a $5,000 project, you're not actually walking away with $5,000 for a lot of reasons, but one of them being processing fees. So here are the processing fees right now, and these change all the time. So go look at what they currently are for whichever one you're using, but this is what they were last I checked. But Stripe and Square's 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. And then PayPal's are higher, so 3.49% and 49 cents per transaction. So the per transaction means that like, say your client's doing 12 total payments for you, that you're going to be hit with that 30 cents for every payment plus the 2.9. And there are some other payment options like besides these, but most of these like invoicing payment processing companies are going to fall within that range. So that's kind of the range you're looking at. Now, just with that in mind, that means that on a $3,000 website project, you are automatically losing anywhere from $87 to $118 if I did that math right. And that is okay. So remember, that's the cost of doing business. And so you need to see that $3,000 not as what you're walking away with. And when we get into that and get better at like sitting down and doing the math on our services, you're going to show up more confidently when you talk about them, and you're just going to feel better about what it is you're making and what it is you're charging. So, and it's also worth noting that these credit card processing fees, transaction processing fees, whatever you want to call them, they all are tax deductible. So we're going to keep going with this thought, but for the next strategy, I want to ask you, do you actually know how long-ish a website project takes you to do? A lot of designers don't know because it just kind of feels like you're like, yeah, it takes me 3 months, or I do it in a VIP day. And I would say that's even different than like the time. I'm talking like the amount of hours. And so if you don't know, start tracking your time. When we're not charging hourly, we often just throw out tracking our time. It's like something we don't need to do. Like, hey, I don't charge hourly. I don't really, why would I need to track my hours worked? But it really matters when we think about our pricing to make sure that as the business owner, you are getting a good hourly rate on your projects. And that's what you really want to ask back, and how it's not about like what she's doing, what he's doing for their pricing. It's about like what you're doing, and does it work with your life, and does it work with like how much time you're spending per project. So I personally use an app called Toggle. It's Toggl, and it's there's a paid version, but there's also, I'm on the free version. It's a free desktop just website you can visit, or an app you can download. I just literally have it open in a browser window when I'm working, and I use it to track my time, even not working with clients. But I would recommend, I did this with working with clients too, but I have like, what I'll do is I have a folder called client projects. And then within it, you can make a task that is that client's name. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it that I'd recommend even more is what you see on the screen here, where you're getting more granular and you're making a group for that client, and then individual projects is what they're called on Toggle for each part of the project. And then you're clocking in and out on things. So you might go and like, it says the client's name, and you're clocking in on working on their branding. You're clocking in on the meetings, you're clocking in on miscellaneous, you're clocking in on the website. And that way you can see at the end of the project or at the end of the week, like, okay, I spent 10 hours this week on this client, and 5 hours of that was in meetings with them. Was that really necessary? You can kind of start asking those questions. And then this will show you, once you get to the end of the project, how long it took you, and with good accuracy. It's not you just saying it takes me about a month, or it takes me, a week for the VIP week. It's like, no, how many hours in that month, how many hours in this week were you spending doing that? And this will also help you account for like the pre-work of it a little bit as well. So let's talk about calculating and doing some math. So let's say you did a project that was $8,000, and then that automatically means that it was all one payment, which I know might not be. So these are all really rough numbers, but $232 in processing fees if you were using Stripe, automatically taken off. $400 on a virtual assistant. Let's just say you had a virtual assistant who helped you with some parts of this project, and that was what you paid her around for this project. And then let's say too that you spent $100 on fonts that you were not making the client pay for. That was like just included in the like cost of the website. And then in addition to that, you tracked your time in Toggle and find that you spent about 35 hours on the project. So that all means that your hourly rate was around $207. And I would feel good about that personally. But that also might be lower than what you want. It's all a personal decision. You might be like, wow, that's amazing. And even though we can do this kind of math, I just want to say you might already be thinking like, well, you're missing some of this, right? It's never going to be perfect. It's a very rough estimate. So for example, there's obviously the time acquiring this customer, which is not factored into the total. I mean, they might have found you on Instagram, and the previous month you'd spent like 1 million hours making reels, or, it's not factoring in the discovery call or like some initial things like that. But this still is giving you a rough number that makes sure that you're not terribly off. Because what if you do the math and you realize you're making $10 an hour? Like that's not what you want. So just asking yourself that, so we can make our feelings align with reality more. Like maybe you feel like you're never getting paid enough. Let's find out. Maybe you're not, maybe you are. This is going to help you do that. So do the math. And I would just highly encourage you, download Toggle or another one if that's not the one that you already use or feel excited about, but like start tracking this on your next project. And you can also track other things in your business as well through these time trackings. So for example, for me right now, I literally can see it in my other tab as I'm recording this. I have Toggle brought up. And so far I've spent an hour in Toggle working on things for this presentation today. And because I did some prep work before I like actually started recording, but I also am going to know once I'm done with this exactly how long I spent on this presentation, because I tracked the time I spent outlining this, the time we spent making the slides, the time I spent practicing. Now I'm here going. So it's like I do this in my business because I like knowing how long at the end of the week am I spending in all different areas. And so I'm even tracking down to like, social media, meetings with team members, time spent emailing, time spent working on my course. And with Book.Designer, have it divided into like supporting course students. It's maybe a coaching call, or maybe being in the Facebook community, making new lessons, like all these things I categorize out and I track. So at the end of every work week, I can go in and see, okay, Elizabeth, how much time did you, this week, wow, you spent a lot of time on social media. This week you spent a lot of time designing that new template, like whatever it is. And I love knowing that data because it can kind of help me be like, okay, is the time I'm spending on these things aligning with like where the clients are coming from? And asking yourself that question. Okay, our last profitable pricing strategy. I told you guys we were going to talk about raising prices. Here it is. So raise your prices deliberately over time as your portfolio grows and your skills increase. So a common mistake I see designers make, and other types of like entrepreneurs, it's such an easy mistake to make, but you market. You're just like focused on marketing, make another reel, make another TikTok, send an email. Like you're doing all that stuff. You're doing all these discovery calls and you get all these clients because it worked, which is amazing. And now you're booked out for say like 5 months with all these projects. And now you're booking for 6 months from right now. And then just like that, when you get to the project in month 5, you're feeling like your rates are way lower than they should be because you just had 5 months of projects behind you where your portfolio was getting better, your skills were increasing, your systems were getting sharper, and you literally were becoming a better designer in those 5 months. So in reality, that person who's getting you 5 projects later probably should have been paying a little bit more because again, you've increased your skills, fine-tuned, you leveled up in so many ways, and your prices can and should reflect that shift. But when you're like booking out like that and keeping the price the same for every single person, it's not going to happen that way. So you're going to get to month 5 or month 6 or however far you've booked out. And you're going to be like, ugh, I can't believe this client's also $3,200 or whatever it is. So how to do this, how to like fix that problem. I recommend raising your price slightly after every 1 to 2 projects booked. Okay, that's the key. Projects booked, not projects finished, especially if the next project you're booking is a few months away. So how much do you increase by? Literally, if you want to range, I mean, it all depends on how high your prices are to begin with right now, but around $100 to $300-ish is a good range. Literally $100. Remember, we're talking about that range price on your website. So literally just bumping it up $100 on each end or $300 on each end. It's slow and incremental. And I would just say go with what feels good for you and what your demand is. So again, if you're in that situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I have so many discovery calls, they all want to book. That's when you've got to start raising your prices. And you don't want to, obviously, don't do like a bait and switch where like you hear this advice and you're like, oh, I have all these discovery calls lined up and they've seen my current price and now I'm going to change it. You want to do all that like before you're getting to the discovery call point. But if you're booking up crazy fast and every single person who has a discovery call with you is like, heck yes, of course, great deal. It might be time to raise your prices too. That's another thing to consider. There should be some clients who feel as though it's a stretch, some potential clients, I should say. There should be people who say, I love your work, but this is too expensive for me right now. It should not just be like an easy yes for every single person. So yeah, consider this and just do the incremental price raises. I promise yourself 5, 6 months later, it's going to be like, thank you for raising this $1,000 because that's how it feels like this project should have been booked at. So let's like recap those profitable pricing strategies. So remember the first one. Don't pick one exact specific price for your services. Do that range. So remember on your website saying, $3,000 to $5,000. And then on the discovery call, you're going to get more specific with that potential client and tell them an exact price. Factor processing fees into your project cost. Start tracking your time. I recommend Toggle, but you can totally use something else and just figure out like, hey, what is my hourly rate-ish on projects? And that way you can like feel good and know that you're charging something that makes sense for your life and how much time you're spending on things. And then lastly, raise your prices deliberately over time as your skills and your portfolio grows and your skills increase so that you're not being hit, 5, 8 months from now being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this project for this price. Okay, so that is it, friends. And I would love to know, I have a few things to close, but I would love to know if this was helpful to you. Send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. And additionally, I just want to say, if you want to go deeper on pricing, I have a whole module literally just on pricing in Book.Designer. And I truly skimmed the surface in this presentation. I actually looked at some of what's in the course and like touched on different parts of it, still to give you plenty of value, but also knowing like, hey, there's like 10 lessons just on this inside of Book.Designer. Additionally, the course has 90 total lessons, so it's a really like robust, extensive course. You do not have to take it in order. You skip around to what you need, but there's topics like discovery calls, how to do those well, running client projects. You can even steal my exact like template for ClickUp to help you like run client projects seamlessly. There's a literal brand and website design contract that is attorney drafted that you can swipe. There's all kinds of things about finances in your business, tons and tons of marketing stuff, social media, so much more. So it's very extensive. Again, you skip around, take what you need as you need it, and you have lifetime access to it. And the course also includes a really active community. We also do monthly-ish, I like to say, coaching calls that you get access to forever. So whether you join like today or you joined, 2 years ago, you're still getting to do those monthly coaching calls. And it's really fun. You can ask me anything you want to ask about your business, my business, all of those sorts of things. And our Facebook group is also really fun and really just a great place to ask questions. Thanks for listening to this training on my podcast and all the way to the end. I appreciate you being here, and I hope you got some solid takeaways that you can go implement right away to see growth in your design business. If this training gave you an itch to join Book.Designer, I just would love to say I would sincerely love to welcome you into our course and community. And this training only scratches the surface of what all is inside Book.Designer. Like I said, this is kind of like some things from the pricing module, which is actually 2.5 hours of me training talking about pricing. And Booked Out Week kicks off next week. This is my celebration week of building and growing a successful design business. And this is the best time of year to join because the course is discounted and there are multiple great bonuses to really just give you a great boost and help you see results quickly from the course. So this is our last Booked Out Week of 2023, and there will not be another sale on the course until the new year. So again, it really is a great time to join if you're thinking about it. You get lifetime access to the course. So even if you're not wanting to like take it all right now, maybe you're in a season of life where you're like, I don't have the capacity to really dive into the course, it would still be a great time to join and get those bonuses and discount. So to make sure you get details and notified when the week starts and get all the info and the bonuses, go to elizabethmccravy.com/BOD-week. That link is also in the show notes to sign up. Make sure you're on my email list so you'll get all the details. So that's it. And I'll be back next week actually with another episode to help you in growing your design business.